Hello, welcome to Big Picture Monday. My name is Cali Black. In this short video, I'm going to give you the story version, the context of what's going on in this week's Come Follow Me readings, so that as you read through these scriptures this week, you don't have to worry so much about the comprehension and what's going on and who's important and what do I need to actually know. And instead, you can focus on being inspired by the Spirit and being led to those little verses or phrases or stories or characters that pop out to you, whatever it is. And that, of course, is the most important part of scripture study and the best part, of course. This week, we are studying Genesis chapters 28 through 33. Now, remember, at this point in Genesis, God has proven to us that generation to generation to generation, he will keep his promises. He made a promise to Abraham and Sarah. Last week, we studied how that went on to the next generation with Isaac and Rebekah. And this week, we're going to learn about how it goes to the next generation. We are going to focus on Jacob. Although we did learn a little bit about him last week. If you remember, last week we had finished up with Isaac blessing Jacob, with maybe a little bit of deception used with Rebekah, but Rebekah knew that Jacob needed to have the birthright and the full blessings over Esau, even though Esau was older. So Isaac gave Jacob the blessings. And if you remember Esau's temperament from the last where we just left off, Esau wanted to kill Jacob. He was not very happy about this being taken away from him. And so not a good situation. Rebekah wanted to send Jacob down to go visit Haran, which was her hometown. If you remember, back when Abraham's servant went to go find Isaac a wife, that's where he went. He went to Haran. He found Rebekah at the well. Rebekah had fed his camels. And then he went and spoke with a few people, but one of the people was Laban, and Laban is Rebekah's brother. Okay, so just putting that out there. So Genesis 28, here's where we pick up this week. Isaac gives his son Jacob a blessing and tells him, you need to go find someone righteous to marry. And so he goes to Haran. It's also sometimes called Padam Aram. So just know that that's the same exact thing. It's Rebekah's birthplace. Okay, it's the place of her heritage. That's all you need to know. So Jacob goes there and he is ready to find a wife. Now, on the way there, he has a dream, a beautiful vision, and it is a vision of a ladder extending all the way up to heaven. There's some fantastic spiritual applications and nuances, and I think there's lots to get out of that. So we'll explore that this week. But he has a dream about this ladder with the Lord, with angels, and what that can mean. And the Lord also then extends this promise to Jacob. So yes, officially Jacob is now being extended the Abrahamic covenant that his seed will be as numerous as anything else, and that his seed will be blessed, that they will be blessed, and that they will be able to bless other people. So here we go. He's got the covenant. He's ready to go. Okay, chapter 29. He is in Padam Aram, Haran. He is in that location, and he wants to go find Laban, and he meets a beautiful woman named Rachel at a well, of course. And he finds out Rachel is Laban's daughter. Okay, so Laban is his mom's brother, his uncle. And so he sees Rachel, wants to marry her. And Laban says, okay, you need to work 7 years in order to get her hand in marriage. And Jacob loved Rachel, and he said, I will do that. So he works for 7 years, and after the 7 years, you may know how this story goes. He goes to his hopefully future father-in-law, Laban, and says, all right, I've done it. And Laban says, you know what? I actually have an older daughter that I would like to get married first. So here is Leah. And so Jacob has Leah. They do get married, but Jacob still wants Rachel because it says he loves Rachel more. And Laban says, okay, you just got to work another 7 years for her. So Jacob does it. Jacob works another 7 years in order to take Rachel as his wife. And it happens, and now he is married to both of them. Now, Rachel ends up dealing with some infertility problems once they are married. And Leah, on the other hand, gives birth to 4 sons. And the names of those 4 sons are Reuben, Simon, Levi, and Judah. Those names sound familiar, as they hopefully do at least a little bit. That's because Jacob, in just a little bit, we're going to learn that his name gets changed to Israel. we are learning about the origins of the 12 tribes of Israel right here. So here are the first 4 tribes being born, all right, of Reuben, Simon, Levi, and Judah. Now in chapter 30, Rachel, that's Jacob's favorite wife, the younger daughter, she's getting a little jealous that Leah is able to have kids and she's not able to have kids, and she wants to have that. So she does what Sarah did, and that is to give her husband her servant. Her servant's name is Bilhah, and then Bilhah has 2 sons, Dan and Naphtali. Okay, then Leah, the older sister, the one who was first married to Jacob, they kind of have a weird competition going on, Leah and Rachel. Leah gets a little jealous then that Rachel's servant was having kids, and so Leah ends up giving her servant to Jacob as well. Even though Leah is able to have kids, she still wants her servant to have kids. Her servant's name is Zilpah, and she has 2 sons, Gad and Asher. And then Leah herself has 2 additional sons, Issachar and Zebulun. We also learn that she has a daughter. A lot of people assume that there are daughters that were also birthed as well, but unfortunately, we don't have many records of those. And then finally, here we go, Rachel, the favorite wife, the one that he worked 14 years technically for, she has a son, and they name him Joseph. Da, da, da. We're going to learn a lot more about him in future chapters. But Joseph, if you're keeping track, that is 11 children. We'll learn about the 12th one next week. Actually, yeah. We'll talk about him next week, but that is 11 children, okay? Now, at this point, Jacob is still working for Laban, because even after the 7 years and the 7 years of working for his 2 wives, Laban is like, you want some goats, you want some cattle, you want whatever you're wanting, that's fine. You need to keep working for me in order to earn that. And so Jacob is still next to his father-in-law and working in order to pay off everything that his father-in-law is giving him. But Jacob's ready to go. He wants to go back home to Canaan. In fact, he's ready to go back to his homeland. This wasn't the place where he knew that he was going to be settling. He asked Laban, and Laban is like, nope, I'm setting the terms. You've still got to be working for me. And that's kind of where things leave off as a little interesting. Now in chapter 31, this is when the Lord talks to Jacob and says, listen, it's time for you to get out of here. It is time for you to go to Canaan, take your whole family, because at this point, Jacob's got 11 sons at the very least. And so his household's starting to get really big. There's starting to maybe be some conflict going on. It's a little awkward with Laban, and Laban won't let him go. And so Jacob's like, okay, it's time to go. It's time to go. So he gathers his wives, his kids, everything that he owns, and they leave unannounced. They don't ask Laban permission. They just get out of there. And it kind of turns into this pursuit, because Laban finds out about it and he's like, no, you don't. And so Laban gathers a bunch of his people and they start following after Jacob and his whole family. And it's like this dramatic event, right? And at one point, when Jacob sees that Laban is catching up to them, Jacob is just terrified for the conversation that's going to happen the next day. Laban, however, has an interesting experience with God and has his heart softened the night beforehand. And they end up having a conversation. It is a little contentious, like, what are you doing? Why did you leave without blah, blah, blah? But eventually Laban's heart is softened and they come to a beautiful covenant of peace. And Laban says, all right, you're free to go. Go live your own life, go establish your own family, and I'll go back to my land. And so Jacob is overjoyed. He is now ready to go to Canaan. So in chapter 32, we do learn, as excited as Jacob is to take his family, that he had now been gone from his homeland for 20 years, right? He had worked 14 years for the 2 wives and then an additional 6 years with paying off other debts to Laban that he had loaned him. 20 years since he had been in his homeland. He was so excited to go home, except for one person. Because guess who's in Canaan waiting for him? His brother Esau. And the last time that he was with Esau, it was not good. Esau literally wanted to kill him. So like really, really not good. And Jacob's really nervous about this confrontation. Like, how is this going to go? And so he actually gathers up a whole bunch of gifts. He really wants to like make Esau feel special and be like, this was 20 years ago. I hope you've forgiven me. And then we read about a really interesting encounter that Jacob has where he wrestles with an angel or a messenger from God. And after this encounter, Jacob is told that his name is changed to Israel, which means God has prevailed. Now, just as you continue reading the scriptures, you're going to see those names interchangeably used now. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes you will still see him referred to as Jacob. Other times you will see him referred to as Israel. So just know it's the same person, but his name has been changed to Israel at this point. And then our final chapter, Genesis chapter 33, he makes it to Canaan. He sees Esau and, drum roll, Esau has totally forgiven him. He is so happy to see his brother. He is ecstatic to see his brother. He accepts the gifts and is like, listen, welcome. We're so happy to have your family back here. And everything is all great. Jacob and his family get settled in the land of Canaan and they are back in their hometown. Okay, that is it for this week. Like I said, it's kind of like a lot of little things going on. But overall, there's some really powerful lessons about, I think, forgiveness. Sorry, there's a loud truck coming, garbage truck coming by right now. Some powerful lessons about forgiveness, but also lessons about trusting in the Lord and what the Lord can do to our hearts when we are ready to give it all to him. And I think that's pretty cool too. All right, as for spiritual guiding questions, my personal question is going to be this week. There are two instances where Jacob is really nervous for a conversation or a confrontation, and it ends up going really well because he had relied on the Lord, and the Lord had clearly prepared that person for that, both when he's talking to Laban and having the confrontation about leaving Laban, and then when he meets up with Esau again. And so my personal question is, what are some things in my life that I'm incredibly nervous for that I could probably have a little more faith that if I'm trusting in God, it's all gonna go okay. Not gonna go perfectly, but it's all gonna go okay as I turn it over to him and I see what he has already prepared to have happen. Okay, I hope this is helpful. If this is helpful, I appreciate so much every single like and comment and share on these videos here on Instagram, or if you're watching on YouTube as well. It just helps get out the word so much faster, and I really appreciate that. I hope now that you are able to just study the scriptures this week as much as you're able to. Read whatever you can, read a few verses here and there, read a chapter here and there. Whatever you can fit in this week is going to be amazing. And then just pray to be led to those little words, those phrases, those ideas, those impressions that are going to be answers to your modern prayers, which is pretty powerful. All right, have a great week this week and happy studying.